This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
Big tests are on the menu in week 4 in the NFL. We have got the Colts going on the road to take on a very dangerous Los Angeles Rams team. The Buccaneers trying to remain undefeated at home against the Eagles and much more. And today, we're going to break it all down. Brandon Gdula of FanDuel Research, talk to him about his new player level NFL betting model, his read on those games, and his favorite bets at FanDuel Sportsbook. Welcome on into Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research. Joined here, as mentioned, by Brandon Gdula. Find him on X at Gdula13. He is on Blue Sky at Gdula. Check out his work at FanDuel Research, where he is a senior managing editor. Brandon, first time coming on the show to talk some NFL. How you doing today?
Is it my first time ever talking NFL?
I think you did a player prop show, maybe.
That sounds right. Maybe like one time. And then we did the win total draft, I guess.
We did. That was before this new model was built, though. So still Niners, some fun stuff. What's that?
I said go Niners, though.
Go Niners. Steelers under, not looking great for me. So that's a little grim. But we'll see. A lot of season left. I will owe you another hat if I lose that. So what could possibly go wrong there? As mentioned, we're going to quiz Brandon on this new player level model that he's got built out, kind of what the learnings are of building out a player level NFL model. Then we'll go through 3 key games this week, including Colts at Rams, Eagles at Bucks, Ravens at Chiefs, the battle of the 1 and 2 teams, and then Brandon's favorite bets for week 4. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Our college football week 5 preview, breaking down some awesome games there with Riley Thomas is up. You can find his read on Penn State, Oregon. You'd like to bet in Ohio State, Washington. Also talked Alabama, Georgia, LSU taking on Ole Miss too. All that up on the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page and the Covering the Spread podcast feed. Tomorrow, Aiden Cotter will join me talking NFL player props. So a lot of good stuff here in the feed, both the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page and the Covering the Spread podcast feed. Go subscribe there. Leave us a thumbs up on YouTube. 5-star rating in the podcast feed. We appreciate those of you tuning in as always. FanDuel is getting you ready for kickoff with an offer you won't want to miss. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet $5. If it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. You can build parlays, bet player props, ride the live lines, whatever your style. FanDuel has you covered. NFL season is finally here. Only question is, are you ready to play? Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit MD Gambling Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Brandon, let's dig in now to your player-based model, because I have a more stats-based model leaning on things like EPA and stuff like that. A player-based model is very different. And you've had now 3 weeks to dive into this model, kind of analyze it, tweak it, stuff like that. What learnings have you had from running that player-based model so far?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned the EPA model, because that's usually how I used to look at the NFL. It's still how I like to look at the NFL more than anything, because it's how my brain works. It's what I think is ultimately the most important, the underlying data, being able to adjust for that. The problem is, for me, early on in the season, there's not a lot that you can do other than estimate, right? And like that bothers me, because I'm the kind of person who wants to have an answer.
Yeah.
Even if I then find an answer and I'm like, that's not really, like, I don't agree with it right away, something like that. So for me, it was a curiosity thing, but also, you're asking me about the the takeaways, like the learnings, I can go through a bit of the process, but the long story short is basically just getting a bunch of data, as many data points basically as I could, and figuring out who's good, right? Like who's an impactful player. But then you also have to scale that to the idea, and this is the real sort of eye opener. And I was struggling how to like answer this question because like there's so many takeaways, but what am I going to say here and like keep it brief and actually keep it like somewhat actionable? Is the biggest thing for me was it made me think about who's important.
Sure.
And I just kind of frame it that way. But if you look in the off season and I do this stuff, trying to build out like season long simulations, how important is a quarterback to the spread? Like those numbers, you can find them. For other players, you don't really find them. And it's
Right.
like, but if Mike Evans is out,
Right.
clearly there's an impact. But what is the impact?
We don't have Substack posts on like people quizzing bookmakers about Micah Parsons and how much he's worth to a spread for the Packers.
Yes. And so, I had like, you have to change things when Micah Parsons moves teams. And how much does that matter? It's still a very difficult answer because I also, do a lot with NBA data. And so much of a player's production can be tied to who else you play with.
Sure.
And there's no way to get around that. But I got tired of throwing my hands up and just being like, there's no way we can even guess. So what this made me do was do a bunch of research, pull a bunch of data, and look and see, based on a lot of thought, I'll say, figuring out how much someone is worth to a team in a particular week. But what gets funny is like you also then have to figure out, are you talking about like the full 48-man like game day roster? Like how much does a third tight end matter? Like you wouldn't move a line necessarily if a third string tight end is out.
It's Jackson Hawes, that's moving the line 3 points.
That's true. But like we can joke about it, but it's like it even made me think about who's impactful. And it was like, is this more of a who's your top 5? Like what? And that's not where I settled. Like I have, more than that, but I also kept it short of who's your 6th like defensive back, because ideally in a single game that defensive back's not seeing the field a ton.
Right.
So it was really eye-opening, and I would say for anybody who's like somewhat interested in this, you don't have to take the same approach that I did with it, but like you can kind of pick a team, like pick teams and go, I think their offense is this good, I think their defense is this good, and then you can say, well, I think their quarterback is like this tier or this grade or whatever. And like you can figure out how good you think teams are. And then if you do a little bit more legwork, you can be like, well, this is more important than a different like skill group or something like that. So to me, I don't want to answer this as like, oh, this player was more impactful than I thought, because frankly, it's, you got 22 guys on the field at all times, and there's only so much one player can do to take over. And the thing that really clicked with me, and I'll kind of leave it here, is like, I built this first from a lens of season long totals, but I wanted to make sure that it applied to single games. But you think of like great running backs, right? Derrick Henry on the Titans, Adrian Peterson on the Vikings. Like how many wins, how many points per game was he worth? And it just made me realize like maybe some of the adjustments that I would have guessed at before, they're not what they should be. And so I think that's the real takeaway.
And you mentioned in the start of that how you're pulling in different sources. And I think that's an important thing. If someone wants to build a player-based model, is you want to go wisdom of the crowds here. You probably don't want to pull from just one source. And there are a lot of sources you can pull from. You can pull from Pro Football Focus. I have talked to people who use freaking Madden ratings to like do this stuff. Like you want to have multiple ways to judge a player's value, because a wisdom of the crowd space kind of thing is going to get you more likely or closer to the better result. And I think that that's kind of the most interesting to me, is you are pulling in multiple sources to identify who is good and then taking it from there. And I think that that's kind of, if I were giving a recommendation for someone building out a similar model, is I'd want multiple sources telling me who is good effectively.
Yeah, and the other layer to this is the type of thing that, because another reason I wanted to do this just personally was one of my biggest blind spots for anybody who's ever listened to like our DFS show is like, I don't really put a lot of stock into like defensive players. I don't
Yeah.
think a lot about offensive linemen. I know that
Right.
there's an impact, and probably one of the broader like notes I can give is offensive linemen seem to be really impactful compared to what I would have thought. Like I knew that was the case, but it's also how impactful that type of thing. But I wanted to get more acclimated to the ins and outs, the turnover for personnel, and really what this made me kind of do is think about uh, the degree to which you make these tweaks. And you talked about the wisdom of the crowds is like, I don't need to grind film to figure out who's the best cornerback. I can have that kind of done
Someone
for
who can do
me
it better than I can.
and do it better than I can.
Yeah.
And also factor in data. And it's like,
Right.
then I'll just figure out who's in, who's out. And the end result for any of my models, no matter what sport, it gets me looking at stuff, but I don't always agree with it. And that's fine. And you have to be okay with that, I think, personally, as you build a model. If you think your model is perfect, then, good on you. But
if you think it's perfect, bet it for a couple weeks and you'll realize that probably not.
Yes. So to this degree, I have the player level stuff. It gets a lot of weight, but I also have opponent adjusted success rates, EPA numbers, adjusting for turnovers, things like that. So I got a lot of different ways to look at things, but the player level stuff I think is fun. It's not necessarily like the skeleton key that unlocks everything. Right. It's just, again, another piece to the puzzle. And it really helped me figure out, because we're going to talk about some injuries in these games that you're going to ask me about. How much does that change? How much does it matter? And I'm not saying nobody matters. That's not it.
Right.
But again, go back to that idea of like, you only really figure out which quarterbacks move the markets more than which players kind of really move things notably.
So let's see what that model is saying about week number 4 in the NFL. And begin with the game that I think is fascinating. That is the Eagles on the road taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. That spread is Eagles -3.5, and the total is sitting at 44.5 bucks. Likely no Mike Evans for this week, but sounds like based on Adam Schefter's reports, both Chris Godwin and Tristan Wirfs should be back here. Is that enough for them to keep pace with this Eagles team down in Tampa?
So one of the things for me in this game, and I can't really get there with the spread, because this also goes back to like, okay, my model might say one thing, but I also have to look at things. I think the Buccaneers have been really scrappy. They got the wins that they needed to get in adverse conditions. That's not necessarily going to continue. And we also may have seen the Eagles be awoken, right? Like they basically sleepwalked their way through the first 2 weeks. It kind of felt like, and everyone was criticizing the offense. Drew Brees is calling it boring, but in week 3, like they did what they needed to do. You were reminded that AJ Brown can just go take things over. And I know the spread's 3.5, but like, and my model thinks this game's about Philly -2, but I still don't necessarily feel great about that. Both defenses are actually rating out good for me overall across my the different metrics that I look at here. But where I really think things are interesting, despite liking both defenses, is actually on the over. Philadelphia's defense has been underperforming based on what they probably should be doing to this degree. They've let up the highest adjusted ADOT in the league. So compared to what the quarterback's thrown against you. So they're letting up some downfield work, and they've also let up the second worst success rate on the ground. I think this could be one of those games where it's somewhat similar to last week, where they have to do something offensively and they move the ball. But I kind of don't know if the Buccaneers, who just barely got by last week against a weaker team than this, are really going to keep it as close. But with my model saying not the complete opposite, but seeing value on the Buccaneers here, the way that I actually like to go about this is with the over at 44.5. I think Chris Godwin is, like, I swapped him out for Mike Evans. Basically, it's a pretty even swap. I know they play different styles of football. I know the ADOT metric I mentioned is going to prefer Mike Evans, but something here tells me that there's going to be points, and I don't think the Eagles are going to be able to sit back and just do nothing this game.
And that's a key, is if they can sit in the football and deflate that thing in the second half, then we're getting an under. But I agree with you where the Bucs are a good enough team to force their hand. And like, to me, I think Baker Mayfield has proven he can be good even when there's no Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Last year, from weeks 8 through 10, they had neither Godwin nor Evans, and Jalen McMillan got hurt during that span too. So he's throwing to like K. Dotton 10 times a game. Rashad White had like 13 targets in those 3 games. Sterling Shepard was getting involved a bunch. Trey Palmer was peed off the whole time, and they lost all 3 of those games, but Baker Mayfield was efficient. And that says to me, yes, they have injuries, but they can overcome that. And so looking at the over 44.5, I agree. I have this total above that number as well. And it's because I have faith in this Buccaneers offense, despite the injuries, to do something. So I think that's a good way to take advantage of the Bucs just being better than what they should be based on the number of injuries they've had.
Yeah, it's a team that I don't really want to go against. Neither of these teams I really want to go against. And when that's the case, I'll take a look at the over the over under. I actually tend to prefer unders just historically, but in this game, I think the offenses are enough, even with but again, how much is player X worth? Yeah. I think that this is a net positive, assuming that Wirfs is back.
Correct.
And Godwin's good to go even without Evans here. So to me, the over is my preferred route in this game.
Yep, I like that for sure. So Brandon is on over 44.5, minus 104 for Eagles and Buccaneers. Let's talk now about the Rams opponent last week, the Eagles opponent last week, the Los Angeles Rams. Rams back at home for this one, taking on the resurgent Indianapolis Colts. Right now, FanDuel Sportsbook, this spread sits at 3.5. Total is up to 49.5, up a point from where it was yesterday. And I get it. This Colts offense has been superb this year. Rams defense does have some dudes up front, though. So can the Colts stay hot and cover here, or did the Rams finally cool them off in LA?
Yeah, we saw movement with the spread since open. Rams opened minus 4.5, but the total itself even bigger, open at 46.5. So we'll get into that. But this is one of those where you have to figure out what you believe in, I guess. And that's a really big problem, I think, for a lot of people with the Colts. But also, we are not that far removed from a reality where the Rams, beat the Super Bowl champions pretty handily, honestly.
Sure.
This is a good team. I don't really believe in the run game, but whatever chamber Matt Stafford's been in, I think has been working for him, just throwing every pass to Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams is working. But through 3 weeks, the Colts have overperformed offensively and defensively. If you look at their expected points per play versus their actual points per play, both for and allowed, 4th most on offense and 10th most on defense. They don't really get a lot of pressure once you adjust for opponents either. And the Rams are likely due for some offensive regression as well, based on, again, the underlying data telling me what they should have scored and what they've actually scored. So I think that's interesting. Unfortunately, I have this total at 50.1. So if you talk to me, when this thing opened, it would have been a little bit different. But now that it's at 49.5, I don't know if I'm going to quite get there. I have the Rams minus 2.2 as the spread. So I don't want to get there either, because there's a chance that I'm just wrong on the Colts and this is all legitimate. They have really I believe in the team. I've also liked Daniel Jones a bit more over the years than I think public perception, and now it feels like he's in a situation where he can actually play good football. He's been really good against pressure, and the Rams are top 10 in both pressure rate and adjusted pressure rate through 3 weeks. I'm just not positive that that sticks. So I think I need to see it at least one more week for the Colts on the road. So I think I'm just sitting this one out, and I'll watch it and I'll learn something, but I'm not going to be betting this one.
It's going to be a fun game to watch, because when I look at my numbers for the first 3 weeks, it believes in the Colts offense, it says what they're doing is pretty sustainable. It does not buy in the Colts defense a single bit. And I don't know how much I believe that too. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you, where I've had no bets in this game. I've got Rams by 3.9. I've got the total at 48.5 or 48.7. So in line with market, same as you. But I'm not sure if I should believe in what the model is saying about the Colts defense. Like the Titans were better against the Colts than they've been in their first two games. They were in their first two games. Same thing for the Broncos in week 2. They were better against the Colts than they were against other teams. So I'm skeptical of this Colts defense, which means we'll be talking about this game during our DFS show on Thursday as well. Because I think it could feature a lot of points. So I'm in the same boat as you, where I don't really want to buy into like baseline level numbers in this game, because A, I'm excited to watch it, and B, I don't think there's a lot of value as things stand.
Yeah, and again, with that total already moving so much,
right?
I think it's just we're talking at the wrong time, and you have to be okay with that. I don't really want to chase like, hey, I think this game scores points, but it's a different conversation now.
If it's still 46.5 with like we get a win on 47, which is a key number, sign me up, but it's not there anymore. So I agree with you. It is a stay away as things stand, but a fun game to watch regardless. I'm hoping that the other afternoon game that we want to talk about today is just as fun. Hoping, but maybe not optimistic, because the Chiefs have not been a fun watch so far this year, but they are 2.5-point home underdogs against the Baltimore Ravens, with the total of FanDuel Sportsbook sitting at 48.5 for this game. Both these teams are now 2-1. This is a massive game for both these teams, given their aspirations. The Ravens have seemed more impressive in their 1-2 record than the Chiefs have been. So is that the way they've looked, I'll say, in those first 3 games, enough to justify the Ravens being 2.5-point road favorites in KC?
The Chiefs are like the poster boys for people yelling at like power rankings because their record's bad. Like it seems like early on you get those reactions of, well, team X beat team Y and team Y is ahead of them in the power rankings. Like how is that possible? I think though the Chiefs have been better than perception, and I kind of think the Ravens have been maybe a little less like. I got questions with their defense.
Defensively, yes.
I was also going to ask you, how are you like? Do you think there's any difference with either or Lamar Jackson or Derrick Henry? Do you think there's?
I think there's a difference with the offensive line.
I've heard people say that they look a little slower.
I heard the Lamar thing. I think it's just he's under pressure and like he has not been getting rid of the football. So
he never gets rid of the football though.
Yeah, it's like I haven't seen that with Lamar. Henry, I keep thinking back to week 1 when he's like busting off these huge runs against the Bills. Like I can't get that out of my mind. So to me, it's more about like this offensive line is not playing as cohesive as they did last year, despite being like a pretty similar unit.
Yeah, I think it's just, first of all, for these teams both to be 1-2, obviously we're having a conversation of like what's going on with them, and neither of these teams is, no team ever wants to be 1-3 unless you're 0-3, then you want to be 1-3. But this is going to be such a fun game because either way, it's going to be there's going to be more overreactions.
Yes,
whether it comes down to the wire or it's a potential blowout. It's like, oh, maybe the Ravens aren't as good as we thought. One of those types of deals. I do think that public perception seems to have gone a little bit far, especially when you look at these, like, as Jim's got FanDuel Sportsbook pulled up here, percentage of money on the spread and percentage of the bets really favoring the Ravens. I think public perception is that the Chiefs are really not good. And I can understand that to a degree. The Chiefs were always due for regression based on how well they've played in one-score games in recent years. However, I think that we're going a little bit too far. Their underlying data offensively is still pretty good. Like I have them as a top 10 offense pretty comfortably based on what they've done. I actually talked to you as I was building out the player level model before the season. I was like, this doesn't like the Chiefs offense too much, but they've overperformed. And I frankly would have to think that if I had been doing this same process, I would notice that they overperform what their talent kind of says, which you can account for somewhat with different adjustments. So I think that potentially Baltimore is a little bit overvalued here. They're the biggest overperformer in terms of expected points per play versus actual points per play. They're still a top 3 offense, but they've just scored so much. And outside of like, I think a lot of that too is they hung a lot of points on the Browns, who are a good defense. And I think that that's kind of also in our head. We saw them in prime time on week 1, doing a lot against the Bills. But if you go back to the Chiefs, again, their offense is underperformed. I know they put up only 22 last week, but they were really good in terms of the underlying data in that game. They did what they needed to do. And I think that we might get into a situation where the Chiefs do what they need to do in order to win these games. So my model likes it. I also like it. It's scary ever to go against Lamar, but it's also kind of scary to go against like the Chiefs getting points at home.
Sure.
I like the Chiefs to cover here at home.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. I've got the Ravens by 1.6 points in this game. So pretty tight game. I don't see value in the money line at plus 124, but I am like close. And also you look at this number here, 2.5, it's minus 104. There is a non-zero chance we get a 3 before this game kicks off. And if we get that, I'm gonna be pretty excited. That I think would be really fun to get a full 3 at home for the Chiefs, because I'm looking at my numbers, which if I look at just 2023 data, I exclude all priors, which is not how I bet. It's mostly still 75% prior at this point in the year for me. When I look at just 2025 data, they're still the 10th ranked team in my power rankings. Like, that's a good team. They're 2 spots below the Ravens, but in part because the Ravens defense, like you said, kind of stinks right now. So, and again, that's with like a couple snaps of Xavier Worthy. That's assuming he doesn't play, basically.
Yeah.
And it still has the Chiefs ranked 10th.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. So I agree with you where it's possible we've gone too far in dinging this Chiefs team. If we get a 3, sick. Sign me up at that point. So I think that like this is a spot where I want to be pretty vigilant in watching this number, because the Chiefs have been better than perception, like you said. You look at just 2025 data, they've been fine. They've been boring, but they've been fine. And boring can win football games, especially when you're catching 3 potentially at home against a kind of flawed Ravens team.
Yeah, it has been 3 earlier this week as well. So if you want to be patient, and again, I think with public perception being what it is, I don't think it's like outrageous to be of the belief that it would get to 3, but even 2.5, I like enough. I just really think that the Chiefs they're in this mode now. They're not ready to close the window on this dynasty. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes is going to run. He's going to do what he has to do. They're going to find ways, I think, to keep it close. And the Chiefs, like, you don't think about their rushing offensive being much of anything, but with Mahomes being factored in here, like, it's been pretty efficient, honestly. Like, and you can run on the Ravens, and that might just be the success for. We've seen teams figure out how to play the Chiefs, like, defensively to the Chiefs offense. If you just try to run the ball down the throat of the Ravens and play keep away, that might be the bane of the Ravens this year, or at least for now, until they get healthier and stuff.
Give me some Noah Gray, Big Shot Bob Tunyon, like heavy packages. We don't need Kelsey, but like some Noah Gray, Robert Tunyon, heavy packages with like Kareem Hunt. That could be fun, I think, on Sunday. I've given up on my Isaiah Pacheco dynasty share, so I'm going to go with Kareem Hunt here. But I do think that this is a fun game. So Brandon is on the Chiefs plus 2.5, minus 104 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Any other bets stand out to you across this very fun Week 4 slate, Brandon?
Yeah, I got 2 more. I like the Chargers on the road.
You're betting against
minus
my boy
6.
Jackson Dart? Come on.
Where does your model have the Chargers ranked overall?
If I look at just 2025 data,
sure.
They were first before Monday night, but then the Ravens lost, or the Lions playing well pushed the Packers up, and so the Packers are 1, Chargers 2.
Okay, so basically,
it's really weird to talk about stuff where like opponent adjusted when there's
yes.
only 3 games. So,
yeah.
But yes,
I hear that.
Yeah.
But we're getting one of the best teams in 2025, and sure, we can talk about priors and last year's data, but you know, Justin Herbert's healthy. This team, I know, is down a running back, but this team's been throwing the ball so much anyway. We're just kind of getting one of the best teams in football, On the road, yes, but against the quarterback making his first start. I know Jackson Dart's got some plays. I know you're very high on Jackson Dart long term, but honestly, you can look into the teams traveling east playing at 1:00. It's not that huge of a narrative, honestly, or it's a huge narrative, but it really probably shouldn't be. I just feel like I don't know what I would have thought this line should have been, but when I saw it was 6.5, I thought I just wrote it down wrong. So can you go like, I know you don't want to go against Jackson Dart in his first start, but what's your model say about this one?
Well, I did downgrade them for Dart
Yeah.
just because like it's a guy making his first career start. And I like Jackson Dart, but also I have to be grounded in the fact that he was not a top 20 pick at quarterback, and non-top 20 picks have a very low success rate in the NFL. And he played great in the preseason. The vibes are good as far as like the team liking him. So with the downgrade, I got the Chargers by 6.1. So I'm pretty in line with market here. I think it was 5.5 at one point. Dixon out to 6.5. I think that was an anticipation of Dart starting. If I had to guess, kind of people getting ahead of that. But I understand why you're here, even if it makes me sad to bet against Jackson Dart.
I just don't see how this Giants team. I mean, I can see it. I can see it, but I also think like stating before this game that they're starting him all season might be telling as well.
Sure.
Like, hey, we know this might be rough this week,
sure.
but don't ask us. Like,
please
don't
stop
ask
asking me.
Yeah. And they play on the road against the Saints next week. Yeah. I think that potentially this is he plays the first game. Yeah, he struggled at home against the Chargers, but now his first start's not going to be in a spot where he should come through. I think that's telling at least a little bit. So I just have the Chargers in a pretty lopsided game here, honestly.
I need some Baker Mayfield energy out of Jackson Dart because there were rumors before the draft the Saints were going to draft him, and they didn't. They took Tyler Shuck after Jackson Dart was gone. So I need like Baker Mayfield. Hey, like their DC once blew his nose my direction, and therefore I decided to like gut his family, like that kind of thing. I need that energy from Jackson Dart next week against the Saints. Personally, Chargers didn't pass on him. That's okay. They had Herbert and stuff like that, but maybe next week we can get some Jackson Dart revenge in there. You mentioned you got two bets. What's the other one you like?
Yeah, another just a quick one here. I like the Bears. The Bears have shown me something. They're on the road against the Raiders, which is not necessarily the most daunting road spot by any means.
Yeah, a lot of Chicago fans.
Yeah. The Raiders basically, since moving to Vegas, have like a bottom 6 home field advantage. I think the Bears are going to be able to mount some, something here. They did open plus 2.5 for what that's worth to anybody, but to me, this is a better team than I would have thought. I thought this was like kind of LOL. This is the Bears again, but you have to understand that this is a brand new, again, and like another new situation for this entire team. And we can look at the Island game, the tape on Caleb Williams, but he's been pretty solid. Honestly, they have a pretty much what I would consider a low end, like alpha kind of wide receiver one. Yeah. Like Roma Dunze is a very good football player, and I just don't know what the Raiders have really shown me either. So this is again one of those where the data says it. I look into it more, and I'm like, yeah, I think I would like the Bears here. So I like the Bears on the road here to cover.
The Bears catching 1.5 right now. That is minus 118. Their money line is minus 106 if you want to go that route instead. And again, that is in addition to Brandon, like the Chargers as well. Now, I've got you here, Brandon. Before we let people go, if I'm going to have you on for Ryder Cup week, we got to talk some Ryder Cup. Obviously, this is the FanDuel football betting YouTube page, not the FanDuel golf betting YouTube page, where we also do a show every week during the off season. But hey, it's Ryder Cup week, so I got to let you cook a little bit. Right now, Europe is plus 165. I know you've run the numbers on this. What are you seeing for the Ryder Cup and in general? How pumped are you to see this thing get underway this weekend?
I'm extremely excited. My wife's also very excited. I got her very into the Ryder Cup without really trying, but I think it's just an extension. It's probably a little bit tiding her over until TGL season, honestly.
Okay, good. I like this.
But I've consumed pretty much all of the Ryder Cup content that I could. I got the data, like I do the simulations. I don't really see a lot of value in just the straight up winner market. What I ended up liking in terms of if somebody's interested is Europe with their spread +2. I think like I've heard a lot of assumptions that this is just going to be a lopsided Ryder Cup one way or the other. I don't really see it that way. So to me, I think this one's close. The data itself is about as close as it's been. So with that being said, and with the fact that the home like host narrative that really applies more to Europe than it does for the USA. Like they're not as strong at home naturally for anybody who's like followed it. So to me, I know it doesn't feel great to go against the US if you're got your patriotic flag flying this week, but to me, Europe to keep this one close, get 2 extra points here, -120. I feel really good with that. I just think that the team composition is very similar. It's about as narrow of a data gap as there's been. And this team seems really motivated. And I'm not sure like the US is ready to answer the bell. With that said, though, I don't know if they're going to lose at home in this environment. So this is my preferred route. I have other bets written up on FanDuel.com/research if you want to check those out. But in terms of like a high level, I think this one's going to be close.
All right. So Brandon is on Europe +2 in the spread market at FanDuel Sportsbook. Is your wife rooting for is she rooting for a particular golfer? Is she rooting for the US? Because
she's rooting
there are
for
a lot of European golfers I like. And so I get a little conflicted at times.
I think she's rooting for Europe, honestly.
Okay. I respect it. I respect it and understand it.
Yeah.
They're a fun team, man. Like
they are. They're a fun team. I was watching the press conference and Ludwig Aubert was being asked about playing with Victor Hovland. He said basically Victor's like talking about UFOs and stuff. And I'm like, how do you?
Oh, no, we can't. I don't want to hear Victor's takes on UFOs. That's getting into Aaron Rodgers territory. I want nothing to do with that. Vic, please don't ruin Vic for me. I was going to ask for a mic'd up with those two. I've canceled that request.
I want to hear everything Victor Hovland has to say, honestly.
Oh man. I do too. Even if it gets a little weird, maybe we let it fly and just let Vic cook. But it's gonna be a fun week out there at Bethpage Black. That is all that we have here for today on covering the spread. Again, check out our college football show with Riley Thomas, already up on the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page and the Covering the Spread podcast feed. Tomorrow, player prop show with Aiden Cotter, breaking down NFL Week 4 there. Of course, our DFS show also on the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page too. Subscribe there. Leave us a thumbs up. We appreciate those of you checking us out on YouTube as always. Brandon, appreciate the time. Enjoy the Ryder Cup. Enjoy NFL Week number 4. We'll talk to you once again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Find Brandon on X at Gdula13. He is on Blue Sky at Gdula. I'm on X and Blue Sky at JimSannes. You can find me on Threads at Jim.Sonnes. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your bets. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow to break down top props for Week 4. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.